how do we bring nature and wildlife and biodiversity back into farming and back into food production systems. Every producer on land can produce more by actually taking land out of production and not wasting resources trying to farm land that's marginal. That land is perfect for producing carbon sequestration, for water retention and stream flow over the year, for clearer streams, less soil erosion. We need to begin to show land owners that there are other ways to make a living and to survive than simply by trying to produce commodity crops and in low price markets, et cetera. So I think we're going to see as we move forward that there will be more bringing nature into farming. That's because I think we do have to reclaim some of that land, and we've been working in Brazil on these kinds of things, including how do you reforest areas that have been cleared for ranches. One of the proposals I've just made recently to the Lula administration, the new president of Brazil, is that they put a 1% environmental levy on all commodities that are exported from the country, so that every buyer has to pay some of the environmental externalities of what that commodity production is producing, and then use that money to reforest critical areas, riparian areas, watershed areas, et cetera. We've even developed a model where we can take that money and leverage green bonds with it, where we have 30 or 40-year funding at lower interest rates that can be used to cover some of these same costs. But most importantly, I think we're also using the reforestation as a way to bring local communities back onto these lands. Most ranchers have very little labor. They can't afford to replant forest, and that's an expensive thing. But if we can help cover the cost of that and bring and pay communities to gather seeds, to produce seedlings when you need seedlings as opposed to just seeds, and then come in and replant it, and pay them also on the survival rate at 5 years, not just for getting a seed in the ground or a seedling in the ground, so that you actually have something. But here's the real part: the rancher is going to own the carbon that any tree sequesters, but the communities get collection rights to the nuts and fruits and essential oils. And we've already developed markets and contracts with Boticário and Natura in Brazil, two big companies that make personal care products, et cetera, to begin to look at bringing biodiversity back onto ranches in a very different way. So I think we're just scratching the surface on these kind of things. I just was reading a piece that showed that if we managed key large animals both in the ocean and on land, we could actually increase carbon sequestration. And the one example that came out of that I thought was really interesting was that if we had a $30 price for a ton of carbon, ranchers in the West would make more money growing bison than they would growing cattle without selling them for meat at all. Well, that's a whole different ballgame, and it really opens up the potential of a lot of land that probably has been used pretty marginally for a long time. So I think we've got to really think about how to shift existing productions, not just because because climate change is going to force us to anyway. I mean, the fisheries are moving 25 miles a year or something like 500 miles in 20 years. We've already documented that. Crops in the Midwest are moving about 20, 25 miles north a year. And so they're going to be having to come in with something later to grow. Well, why not make it biomass? Why not make it sequestered carbon? Let's find markets for those things. And then we also need to shift more production off farms entirely. Indoors, vertical ag, hydroponics. There are many ways to reduce the impacts of producing food, reduce the waste as well, make it more available in food deserts without actually always trying to till the soil to do it.